And we are live. Welcome to my podcast. It doesn't have a name yet. I really need to add like a name to this podcast. Maybe. I think that's something you should do, right? Anyway, welcome to it. I'll just give it a few minutes to before I start the video. We'll get into it proper. I just want to give it a little bit to make sure everyone can get in. At least, a few minutes. But let's talk. Today we're going to talk about two different types of deaths. We have the slow and sort of gradual death that happens over a long period of time as technology and things move on. And then, of course, we have the quick and spectacular implosion, a death that happens over just a few days. And we have both this week in the news, as we'll be discussing soon. And good morning, Deborah. Good to see you. We'll see these two deaths play out in the video game industry. And I think, let's see, we will begin here. Let me play for you one of the great moments in E3. Maybe the greatest moment, in my opinion, in E3.
But before you leave, I'd like you to step inside one more world.
I want to apologize for the quality. This is a very old video. It is like taken on a phone, an early cell phone. I didn't mess with my audio properties. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Standing ovation.
Who's the man? Who's the man?
That was, of course, you might recognize it, but for everyone at home, or maybe people just listening to the audio, hey, good morning, Jack. That was the reveal of Twilight Princess at E3, I believe 2004. Of course, Shigeru Miyamoto, legendary game designer, coming out there with the sword and shield, crowd going absolutely insane. This was after, I believe, they had a Wind Waker, and it wasn't quite as popular received. It was like a kid version of Link. And then, Ocarina of Time was so popular that, people wanted a return to like a serious, mature Link. And of course, they gave it to him. And this crazy trailer, people just went crazy. This was at the very end of their conference. People were like, there's always... In E3, there is always this kind of like hype, like what's going to get revealed? What's going to be the biggest reveal? Everyone's sort of waiting for that moment. And then, of course, Nintendo delivered it with this reveal. And, of course, a little bit of stagemanship as Shigeru Miyamoto comes out with the sword and shield and starts talking.
And this game is not different. We are now taking you to a world where Link has grown up. A world where he will act different and look different. In order to grow, Link must not stand still. And neither can I. So Thank you.
Shigeru's great. He can barely speak English, but he's just an awesome guy. He's really enjoying himself there. But this isn't necessarily to talk about Twilight Princess and Nintendo's E3. It is to talk about the sad news that E3 is dead. Yes, E3, let's expand this view, is dead for good. This is by Wesley Yinpool over at IGN. The Entertainment Software Association announced that E3 is gone for good. 28 years after the first event took place. They make a statement on Twitter. More than 2 decades, each one bigger than the last. It's time to say goodbye. Thanks for the memories. And of course, the Electronic Entertainment Expo was canceled in 2003 after a lot of people pulled out. Just didn't get enough interest. Of course, during COVID, it was canceled in 2020 due to the pandemic. They had a digital version in 2021. It was canceled in 2022 to revitalize the showcase, set a new standard. That, of course, never happened. Let me try and pull the mic back. I'm peeking a little bit. Of course, E3 was always kind of like the big showcase of games where everyone would come together. It was just a press-only event. You know, you couldn't really get involved with the audience. And I think this, one of the reasons it kind of shows that it's slowly dying off is games journalism is really, and journalism in general, I think is losing a lot of power. Now it's, you know, more towards YouTube and independent press, as, you know, we sort of see the industry isn't healthy, and it's actually, I'm really glad to see a lot of the games journalism go away. It hasn't really served any of the people it's supposed to. It kind of hates its audience now, which is, you know, primary male demographic. And of course, you saw stuff with like Gamergate several years back. But this is sort of the, I think, inevitable end for E3. You know, COVID just kind of sped up that process. Nintendo was pulling out of E3s, you know, doing the Treehouse and their direct-to-market, which I think is a lot easier for them, especially with having, you know, Japanese presenters. They could dub over it. You know, they can have a specifically Japanese stream and then dub over it, have the Treehouses, and that kind of stuff later on. So it's a lot easier for them to get the logistics together and present the games the way they want to present it. You know, it's, of course, means we won't be able to see the booths and all like the kind of like setup they used to do. It's, I don't know, it's kind of indicative of what's happening with gaming. It's like a lot of the excitement and the energy seems to be slowly fading away from the industry as things fracture more and more. It used to be, like I said, the big thing is everyone come together, big reveals, trying to build lots of hype. You know, during the console wars, you know, who would have the best presentation, and then people online, especially like in things like 4chan or Reddit, were like, oh, Nintendo won this one, PlayStation won this one, Xbox, and that all of their different factions. And even that's kind of died. People don't seem to care as much about consoles anymore. I don't know if that's just because my perception, because I've grown up and I don't really care about it as much, or just in general. It's like there's not a lot of exclusives. PlayStation, you know, Xbox, PC. There's not a lot of standing for consoles as much, I think, anymore. But that's the end of it. E3 is gone. Like I said, I'm not completely sure. I'm not really all that sad to see it go, but it is kind of, when you watch those moments, Nintendo always wins. That was my opinion too. That Nintendo always won it because it was always the games I'm most excited for. But like I said, nostalgic for those good times. They will never be that moment. My one regret is there'll never be that moment where the legendary prophesized moment where Gaben Gabe Newell will stand on the stage and announce Half-Life 3. That will never happen. There was always rumors that he'd have like 2 daggers in his hands, announcing announcing a giant 3 and would show up in flames behind him. And all of a sudden, everyone would go nuts for Half-Life 3, but that never happened. No, I haven't played Wonder yet. I don't know if I'm planning on getting it or not. It's just like, especially with Christmas, like it's like money's a little tight because I'm buying like presents and that kind of stuff, but we'll see. I'll talk about some of the games I've been playing later on in the podcast if I have time left. But Wonder, I definitely want to play it. I just haven't had the chance. And I don't know if I'm going to shell out the $60 right at the moment. But moving on to our next story. Let's go back to my the border. Let me show you this great trailer for a zombie survivor game.
Welcome to the short gameplay demonstration trailer for The Day Before, an upcoming open-world multiplayer survival game. The Day Before features a huge, stunningly detailed post-apocalyptic world.
Wow, look how nice
by
these
a terrible
graphics look.
virus.
I'm running out of fuel.
It says in-game footage too.
Awesome.
That'll be important later.
We'll look around here, I guess.
Wow.
Shall we split up?
Reflections on
Yep.
the water.
I'll find out what's in the skyscraper.
Okay, and I'll look around here. Let's see what we have here. All right. I have found a great cowboy hat. Tell her everything's all right. And there aren't any more guns in the valley.
Easy, cowboy.
Listen up. This is Woodbury Survivor Colony speaking.
Wow. Move on. Crazy combat. Now, would you believe this was made by a small indie company named Fantastic? A lot of people didn't. This is The Day Before, as it was called. And, well, things didn't work out for The Day Before. This is in one of the most insane implosions in recent video game history. The Day Before. Player count drops almost 90% in 4 days. Enters Steam's 10 worst reviewed games list. This is by Ryan Dinsdale over at IGN. Controversial early access Day Before has seen its player count fall almost 90% in just 4 days, entering Steam's 10 worst reviewed games of all time. Data from playing tracker website SteamDB shows The Day Before peaked at 38,000 concurrent users at the launch of December 7th. But 4 days later, at the time of writing, the number has dropped to 4,125. This is a 89% decrease. The number saw a harsh drop-off on December 8th, but unusually saw even slight decreases into the weekend as well. Games typically launch during the weekend. During the week, player counts will rise during the weekend when people have more time to play. It compares the finals, which actually increased. It was launched on a Friday, and then increased on Sunday, and then of course The Day Before saw the opposite, dropping to a peak of 9,000, and then 7,600. And a committee seeing complaints said that out of 989 votes, only 150 said they were keeping it. Player feedback was overwhelmingly negative. Only 20% of the users recommending it. It's actually funny. It says 9th on the place. War of Three Kingdoms topped the list, followed by Overwatch 2. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Let's say a lot of these things I think are more meme stuff. Overwatch 2 isn't a... I mean, a lot of people don't like it, but it's not a bad game. Not like this. Let's see. I don't know if we can get...
We'll catch up.
This is how the game looks now. Just a comparison. Looks much worse. They actually have them out. You saw the sort of details here of the old game with the light reflection and all that crazy stuff. Look out, there's 4 whole zombies. Look how well this person's dodging. Amazing. So she's out of bullets. And there is no melee. This is one thing I've found out. They didn't add a single melee option in this game. Just shows how insane this was. Person's gonna check their tablet. Ooh, I got hit. That's enough of that. It's 4 whole zombies in this entire place so far. This game was just an absolute scam. It was supposed to be open world. That's what it was promised. And that was they put on the Steam pages. But it ended up being more of an distraction shooter. And of course, they changed it to early access. Let's see. Its launch as an early access title was only 1 month. Was revealed only 1 month prior to November 2023. So it's like, all right, guys, we're going to release this fully stocked game in December. Then all of a sudden, November, hey, guys, it's early access instead. Crazy. In other words, they didn't complete this at all. Like, this was just totally incomplete. A lot of people, like I said, think that it was a scam. A lot of the assets you can buy, and they just sort of reused them almost wholesale. A lot of the trailers they were using were very similar to other trailers. The look and aesthetics copied a lot of The Division, a different game. You know, it was delayed several times. And the beta was only accessible to people who took part in unpaid work. So the whole thing was a mess ahead of time. But for it to release, and then, well, actually I haven't gotten to this part of it. After it dropped 90%, well, 4 days later, Fantastic announced that today we announced the closure of Fantastic Studios. This is the people that made the game. Unfortunately, the day before has failed financially, and we lack the funds to continue. All income received is being used to pay off the debts to our partners. We invested all our efforts, resources, man hours into the development of the day before, which was our first huge game. We want to release new patches to reveal the full potential of the game, but unfortunately, we don't have the funding to continue the work. It's important to note, we didn't take any money from the public during the development of the day before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns. We worked tirelessly for 5 years, pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into the game. At the moment, the future of the day before and Private Night is unknown, but servers will remain operational. We apologize if we didn't meet your expectations. We did everything within our powers, but unfortunately we miscalculated our capabilities. Creating games is an incredibly challenging endeavor. Well, a lot of people didn't buy this. They're, citing the other stuff before that there was definitely some, am I having some bitrate issues? Guys, let me know if I am. Is lower than the recommended bitrate. 6,000 kbs. I could change this, but oh well. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by my OBS. So people didn't buy this. They think it was kind of a scam to begin with. due to the delays, the promises made before. All of a sudden, it's early access. It's been delayed several times, and then of course 4 days later, they sold I think 200,000 copies, and half of those were refunded. So, all of a sudden fail financially right after you got the money for the game. How much debt were they in? If selling, even if half of those got returned, it'd be 100,000 copies. That's still fairly successful in your opening days. It going this badly, this quickly, definitely smells like a scam. And then the publisher, this is Mytona. This is the publisher of the game that was working with Fantastic. To all Day Before players, as investors of the Day Before, we'd like to provide some updates on the current situation around the game. We are sorry for the fact that the game didn't meet the expectations of the majority of the players. Today we will work with Steam to open up refunds for any player who choose to make a refund. We're in contact with Fantastic regarding the future of the game. Mytona. Well, that is the publisher, and it's a pretty rare situation when the publisher of the game itself will say that they will issue any player a refund. That's how bad this was, and how deceptive you see with trailers like these, where the game is this is a completely different game compared to here's this, and here is the Day Before. And this is, reality. How the game actually looks. This versus this. I mean, similar in some sense, but totally, the quality is just an absolute night and day difference. And like I said, a lot of people are saying these assets are just generic assets you can get for Unreal, the Unreal Engine, that they just, barely modified and put up. This trailer, this was apparently, this is apparently gameplay trailer from, let's see, 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, you went from this to this after 2 years of work. Something is up there. 100%. Definitely a scam, and one of the biggest disasters in gaming in recent memory, with these absolutely insanely negative reviews. So that is it for the Day Before. While E3 died slowly and gradually as time moved on, the Day Before imploded almost immediately after it was released. Though I guess you could make the argument that this sort of scam of a development had been going on for several years, as these fake gameplay trailers led people to believe that this was going to be some sort of epic survival horror open world MMO.
Where are you?
But now we move on to Twitch. Oh, Twitch. They got in some trouble. They decided to make this is December 13th, the timeline. This is important because this is another quick implosion. We're updating our approach to sexual content and content classification labels. December 13th, 2023, by Angela Henson. We've received consistent feedback from streamers that our current policies around sexual content are confusing, and that it can be difficult to know how their content will be interpreted based on these policies. We want streamers to feel confident they understand our rules, and viewers feel confident they will get the experience they expected. To accomplish this, we are making 2 changes, effective today. We are streamlining our policy regarding sexual content, and updating the criteria used for homepage recommendations. Now, seems like a good idea. Like, well, they're going to ease up. They used the ridiculous term artistic nudity. What? I was offended by the use of the term artistic in regards to the nudity that they put on Twitch. But that's here nor there. This is the idea. Like, all right, we're not going to have, the hot tub streamers. Hey, good morning, Baron. We're not going to have hot tub streamers and all these, you see the typical ethot sort of stuff that goes on Twitch, the thirst trapping. And we're going to get that off the homepage. We'll have these specific labels. We'll allow more of it, but we'll add these labels to basically keep them off the homepage. So, like, you open your Twitch, some kid, I want to go on Twitch to watch some Fortnite, and all of a sudden they're not sucked in to the sword world of some, girls' only fans funnel. So, this actually, let me find this. There was a great. There's this great line. Yeah, preferably to autistic nudity. This is a great line from this facts. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Like, some types of content were prohibited will now be allowed on Twitch if appropriately labeled. These changes include previously prohibited but not allowed with label. Content that deliberately highlighted breast, buttocks, or pelvic region, even when fully clothed. Streamers found it difficult to determine what was prohibited and what was allowed, and often evaluating whether or not a stream violated this portion of the policy was subjective. In addition, the former sexually suggestive content policy was out of line with industry standards and resulted in female-presenting streamers being disproportionately penalized. I love that. I mean, first of all, this is just 100% Twitch and just shows how awful they become. Female presenting, of course. You can't just say females or women. You have to have female presenting because you never know. And of course, they were disproportionately penalized because, of course, I don't think a lot of men do thirst traps or really kind of funnel young men into the OnlyFans, which is what, to be clear, like, this was in response to, like, topless streamers being banned, where they would, like, be topless, but they'd be cut off before, it shows anything too risque. And, of course, they also wanted to draw fictionalized, drawn, animated, or sculpted, fully exposed, female-presenting breast or genitalia buttocks. And this was, like, a lot of, like, artist drawings, like furries and all sorts of weird stuff. And, of course, you have the VTubers, a lot of, like, thirst trapping of VTubers on Twitch as well. Oh, and also it allowed erotic dances that involved disrobing or disrobing gestures, such as strip teases. Popular dances, twerking, grinding, pole dancing are now allowed with a label. We got to allow the twerking and the pole dancing, of course. I mean, you got to have that on Twitch. And, of course, Twitch, I mean, for me, I don't know about you guys, but I always looked at Twitch, and maybe I shouldn't anymore, but I always saw them as more like a gaming streaming, That's where you stream video games. Gamers, Dota, Minecraft, all that stuff, Valorant. You go on there, you play games, and you'd stream it. But lately, they've allowed, like, just chatting, political debates, all sorts of other garbage, I guess, to expand. I don't know. Is video games become less popular? Or are they just trying to expand more and more? They got to, like, get 20% above last year, so we've got to expand into a different audience, attract more people. I know they were trying to attract more women, as, video games, kind of don't do that anymore. They don't really attract a lot of female audiences. So, the just chatting and, well, I don't know if the e-thoughts attract a lot of female audiences either, but definitely male audiences. But this was quickly changed very soon. You remember this was December 13th. Now on December 15th, we have an update to the sexual content policy. This is authored by Dan Clancy, who's the CEO. You know what's bad? When, like, the last one was like, some like administrator. I don't know who Angela Henson is for Twitch, but when the CEO has to come out and give a statement, it's gone terribly wrong. On Wednesday, we update our sexual content policy. Our primary goal in making these updates was to make our guidelines easier to understand and enforce. Part of this update included changes to how we treat fictionalized nudity. For years, through user voice and in conversations, we heard from artists that our content policies were eliminating. And making this update, we were trying to be responsive to these requests to allow the thriving artist community on Twitch to utilize the human form in their art. Which kind of makes sense, all right? I mean, like, if you want to draw like a tasteful nude on Twitch, I could see that not being very harmful. First, we wanted to make it clear that some streamers, in response to this update, created content that was in violation of our new policy. We were quickly to remove that content and issue channel enforcements. However, there was also a great deal of new content that was allowed under the updated policy. Much of the content created has been met with community concern. These are concerns we share. Upon reflection, we have decided that we went too far with this change. Digital depictions of nudity presented in a unique challenge AI can be used to create realistic images and can be hard to distinguish between digital art and photography. So effective today, we're rolling back the artistic nudity changes. Moving forward, depictions of real or fictional nudity will be allowed on Twitch, regardless of the medium. The restriction does not apply to mature-rated games. You can find emote-specific standards for nudity and sexual content on the emote guidelines. We aren't making other changes to the updated sexual content policy. We are in process of pushing out updates to our community guidelines that reflect this change, and it will take a few days, both this blog and the new community guidelines, to be translated. And this is the best part of the whole statement. While I wish we would have predicted this outcome, part of our job is to make adjustments that serve the community. I apologize for the confusion this update has caused. This is the best. While I wish we would have predicted this outcome. Like, man, I think anyone with a half a brain could have predicted that the outcome of allowing nudity on Twitch would result in... By the way, they say community concern. I 100% think this translates to advertisers were concerned about having their stuff on a platform and Twitch being looked at as, a porn site rather than a video game streaming site. Because, I mean, let's be real. As much as I hate the fact that, things have become, like, safer and safer, and advertisers want to appeal to, like, children and, like, all ages. So the sort of money available, if you want to make slightly riskier content or slightly, like, bluer content than normal, that you're often getting struck for demonetization and that sort of thing. But, I mean, the idea that we're just going to allow all of this stuff, pole dancing, nudity, animated nudity, and I do feel bad for, like, artists that, I definitely see, like, highly talented artists, just drawing stuff, certain forms, and then getting hit on that when it's not really meant to be necessarily erotic. Or even if it is, like, slightly erotic, it's not necessarily something like that, where, they're actually showing off a talent rather than just standing there naked, or, some sort of VTuber like that. So, I mean, that, in a way, stinks for them. But they really opened the floodgate with the previous changes, allowing fictionalized, drawn, animated, or sculpted nudity. Was just, like, what do they think was going to happen with that? And, of course, what you think was going to happen actually did happen. And the idea that Dan Clancy could not have seen this outcome. I mean, if you want to reveal that you're completely out of touch, well, this is it. And I don't know what Twitch was thinking. I really think Kick might actually be making them scared, where they want to sort of ease up. Kick is kind of like, hey, we're going to allow a lot more stuff. We're going to have better cuts. And the fact that they're trying to like make stuff, new policies to allow more on their platform might be one of the reasons that they're doing these extreme changes. But the whole thing's hilarious to me because the idea that, oh no, female presenting streamers are being disproportionately penalized. Well, I mean, come on. Who's the one doing this? It's all for female presenting streamers. And as this sort of like fight for the soul of Twitch continues, will it lose its identity as a video game streaming platform? It seems like it, that seems to be much of the push towards other content, some of which, of course, just doesn't really mix too well with video game content. As much as I'm not, some sort of Puritan about this kind of thing, but the idea, like, all right, a young teen comes to your site, watching, he wants to watch, someone play Mario or, someone play Valorant. And of course, there might be like cussing and that kind of stuff on it, but all of a sudden to be like on the same homepage as, say, like bathtub streamers, a streamer, with, basically nude, but, cut off, right before, right from like the start of the breast, like up, cutting off, the nipple. That kind of stuff is like just to share the same platform. It's just really weird. And I don't know exactly what Twitch wants to do about this. But, this has kind of become an ongoing problem. Even the video game community is, more of these like OnlyFans type of women realize that it's a great way to farm attention, is to get in these games, play these games, and then, have a link in the description, sort of get involved in the communities. And of course, there's guys that are more than willing to give them a platform and have them on, their streams, have them on like official streams. You can have these girls on there, doing commentary or just helping present, and it's perfectly fine. Everyone's okay with it. And then, of course, they go about your channel. They got links where you can see them doing all sorts of things that I won't get into. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this turns out. There's probably a lot more I could talk about on it, but can't really collect my thoughts in it. But it's just another example of how sort of women invading male spaces and then changing them in ways that are not for the better. But that is it. Enough of this talk about women and he's doing terrible things with nudity. Let's go on. Let's talk about video games. All right? Let's talk about some video games. Some video games I enjoy. I'll put our Twitch border back on. Let's look at this trailer. It came out last week. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, though. So I want to talk about it now. Well, actually, I won't tell you what the game is. You'll just to watch it. Beautiful trailer, though. We have a man being chased by large animals. He's going to weave in between these smaller herbivore-looking armadillo guys. As they get trashed and thrashed, and all of a sudden a storm of clouds appears and overtakes them. All of a sudden we have lightning striking everywhere. As the guy it's almost like a large bird dragon. Now the big reveal. Monster Hunter Wilds. Look at that. The sound might be a little loud. And then we have Rathalos lighting in. Just so you know, it's a Monster Hunter game. And 2025. Monster Hunter Wilds. This, I love Monster Hunter. I've been playing it since, like, I think 4G. Or I think it was called Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate on the States. You know, playing with my friends on the DS. Played Monster Hunter World, really enjoyed that. Monster Hunter Rise was another fantastic entry, slightly different. And then with Monster Hunter, they come out with like a game. They kind of do a kind of varied approach to Monster Hunter. Like I didn't play Monster Hunter Generations. I skipped that one. But usually like they'll come up with like a really like grounded series, and then they'll go with like more of an action-oriented, almost arcade style series. Arcade might not be the right, but it's like more of a fast-paced, just focusing on hunting. Like if you look at Monster Hunter World, it's very slow-paced. You have a lot of different. Usually, I might be able to bring up. Let's see. Let's see if I got a. You know, it was a funny. I was like freaking out because like all my videos were stuttering. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks terrible. Like I had like such bad frame rate. Let's see, can we get a actual quest here? Like show actual gameplay. And me just flying around the. Oh, I think this was just a test. Let me actually show something that has some time related to it. This will be better, I think. But this is Monster Hunter World. You know, it's a slower paced. It's more about exploring. You have these, a lot of endemic life. This was on PC instead of the Switch. Oh, sorry. Let me pull that back up. Pull OBS back up. It does look really cool. I love the look of it. I mean, you look at the old. You look at the trailer. They've got a lot of stuff on it. Like, I'll bring this back up. Like, if this is actual gameplay and not a trailer, I mean that is one of the things you don't quite know. That this is like like an in-game engine or like an actual something it's capable of. But this is going to be made for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. It's coming out at the same time, I believe, as well, which is really amazing. Usually PC has to wait a while, but I always play it on PC. So, to me, like, that is ideal. But I mean, look at the amount of, not only do you have this clouds coming in, but you have so many monsters on the field. So many different monsters, and usually that's not something that the games have been capable of before. So I don't know if like this has got a better engine than before, but I mean, the graphics look great. You have a mount. This was one thing that I was kind of worried about. If you played Monster Hunter Rise versus Monster Hunter World, if I go back here to the world, like you being able to use the Palmet with a Monster Hunter Rise was just so nice. It's like Palmet is basically this dog, like a wolf type of thing that you ride, and being able to like go through the level like very quickly was just so much nicer. So much nicer to explore. You didn't use stamina either. It just made it just a nice quality of life. You know, sometimes it's nice to sort of slowly move around like I am right now, just sort of explore, appreciate the beauty of the game. But they're also, several hours into it, a lot of this stuff kind of wears off. You know, you've seen it. It's good. But you just want to, got to move on and get done. Especially if you're hunting like monsters multiple times. You don't want to slowly trudge along as you go to fight the monster again for the 10th time to get some sort of shard. So this is one thing that they're kind of addressing with their mount. The other major thing that they have on this reveal that some people are sort of guessing with this sort of large. I mean, you can see just how big this area is, and some are speculating whether or not this is going to be a genuine open world game for Monster Hunter, which isn't something they've done before. Usually it's a map, like a collection of maps that are fairly large, but they're not all connected seamlessly in what like an open world game would be. And usually they are like kind of mission based, where you'll select, all right, slay Toby Kadachi, and then you'll go to the specific map, and then you'll go and slay Toby Kadachi. And then you'll return back to the sort of like home base, and then kind of rinse and repeat as you needed. But the idea of it being connected like this seamlessly is a completely new challenge, and one that I'm almost nervous about. I like playing Rise. I really like how quick paced it was. You just sort of like, boom, you go on the hunt. Some friends can join you, and you just go down and you do, like 10 hunts, and then that's your session. You unlock a new level of difficulty. You move down in the story, and you sort of complete the game quickly that way. I think that style isn't bad, but there's also something to be said about, the world style of gameplay where you're kind of walking around, you kind of feel part of the world. I have been harsh on open world games, but there are like a lot of good open world games too. I think it's just, lately it's become kind of like a go-to buzzword for, game development to just say, oh yeah, it's an open world game. And an open world just automatically means good. But you have to actually, if you don't have this sort of richness and, it's not a world that you sort of want to become immersed in, then it just becomes a lot of empty travel. That's the difference between like an open world game that's, just sort of like, even like, I don't know if you'd call that one game I played, Scum, an open world. I guess in a world way it is, because it's just like one single island, and like it's seamlessly. There's no like instances or anything like that, and a lot of it is just empty space that you sort of travel in. But you look at a game like Tears of the Kingdom, where it's kind of a rich, vibrant world that you can really get kind of lost into. You look in the background, you see this giant dragon flying through the air, and you're like, oh my god, like, will I get to fight that? Or you see a mountain, like Death Mountain, the sort of iconic location you've had in other Zelda series. It's sort of like glowing in the background, you're glowing red in the background, you're like, oh wow, I get to go there at some point during the game. And, that part of it, and like, to just seamlessly go into that is pretty amazing, and just really adds to the sense that you're part of that world. So for a game like Monster Hunter, that could be incredibly, incredibly good. Like I could see myself, like walking through this vast sort of field or desert, and all of a sudden you see like a Diablos, a giant Diablos, or an Elder Dragon in that area, and fighting it on your mount. That the idea of doing something like that seems incredibly cool. So that part of the open world thing I could really get behind. But at the same time, there is like a lot of downfalls that you could have with the open world, where it's going to be like a lot of travel, might get boring, kind of like travel, constantly going around these areas. If they're too boring, or they try to make the game too big. And that's the thing, like with these sort of maps, they're incredibly detailed. Each place has a kind of like a different feel to it, each area, and they present like different ways to fight the monsters. So having these small scale areas kind of really helps the developer focus in on what they want to do. But if you make it too big and you get too ambitious, then you end up with a lot of empty space that doesn't really serve a lot of function, and then, you know, to travel through that becomes a chore. So I'm excited for it, and I'm hoping we'll see a lot of good stuff out of it. I'm definitely hyped up for the game coming out in 2025. It's going to be a long wait, but I've actually kind of been getting into Monster Hunter World again, playing it a bit, just to kind of hype myself up for the game. It's been a while since I played it. I really enjoyed Rise, but like I said, Monster Hunter World does have a different feel to it. And there are a lot of people that enjoy World over Rise. You know, they enjoy the more of the immersive feel and slower pace that Rise or World has to offer. All right, I got one more story for you guys, and this is about. This is from Game Informer by Brandon Shea. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Let me open this up. This is about Tears of the Kingdom. When Tears of the Kingdom launched, it was a cultural phenomenon, spawning countless viral social media posts about the creation of players. Honestly, it quickly became the fastest-selling Zelda title, as well as one of the frontrunners for 2023 Game of the Year. It should have won it, in my opinion, over... I didn't play Baldur's Gate 3, and I know people really loved Baldur's Gate 3, but whatever. I thought the creation system, you know, with the Ultra Hand was absolutely brilliant. It allowed such crazy stuff. You go online and see some of these insane Ultra Hand creations, and it's just incredible to see what people can do with that system. And the way it sort of interacted with the sort of Breath of the Wild engine was amazing. Let me see if I can find an example of like crazy Ultra Hand creations. Let's see if I can bring that here. I mean, you have these like stupid stuff.
Hyrulean space program.
And then people like just launching themselves into space, activating, you know, this like multi-stage rockets.
Is very much set in the realm of fantasy. The boost and link.
And then like giant robots. I mean, this is like I say, like this is the best of open world type of a gameplay, where you give them a sandbox and just let them have fun. An Ultra Hand, like especially versus something like Tears of the Kingdom, you know, allowing like all this sort of like crazy stuff you can do. You find like a Pacific like cave or something with a bunch of monsters. Like, you know what? I'm gonna use a giant robot to beat these enemies. I thought, you know, there's something that Breath of the Wild did really well. There was like a lot of different ways to dispatch your enemies. But when they added this mechanic, they just opened it up to a completely different level and allowed you to just do so many different things with the game. Different ways to travel, different ways to fight. It just made the game so much better in terms of just the creativity that it allowed. And being able to see people share it on social media, it just added a new layer of fun and a new layer of content that people could make. It was awesome. And then they talk about the timeline, Zelda timeline. I don't give a crap about this, but this was sort of the more interesting part of the article that I'll read for you. And then now that it's been over just half a year since The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was released, how are you feeling about the reception of the game to this point? And then this is, I think it's Eiji Onoma. This is the kind of, I think, producer. Well, yeah, the producer, and while the director is the other guy. Hidemaru Fuyabashi. So this is the producer, Eiji, which is kind of like the lead, the guy sort of in charge of the direction of these Zelda games. Think about my past making games with past titles in the series. It always seems to me that there was great excitement when this game would come out among the community, but that this kind of die off that would, sorry, let me try and read this properly. It always seemed to me that this was great excitement when the game came out. It would come out among the community, but then that kind of die off relatively quickly. And then we kind of saw a new trend with Breath of the Wild where the game was released, and we were really pleased to see that it maintained this interest among the fans, and they continued voicing their opinions and sharing discussions online. We've been happy to see that this continued with Tears of the Kingdom as well. I'm so pleased to see that people are still putting these unbelievable vehicles and different creations they've been making online. I'm just happy to see that it's still continuing. Another thing that I haven't really experienced myself from the development side, looking at the reception of the game has come out, I've seen many people saying that they don't want to go to the end of the game because they don't want it to end. And so they've been putting off clearing the game, and that's something I haven't experienced before. And this is Hidemaru Fubiashi talking from his. And from my side, obviously in the past titles, the core gaming audience expressed their joy and satisfaction and fun at playing other Zelda titles. But starting with Tears of the Kingdom, I now see a wider audience being able to enjoy this game. People who are maybe older or maybe a lot younger. You know, kids that are around my youngest kid's age, obviously with Breath of the Wild as well. We built the game to be able to be enjoyed by a wider audience. And to see this come to fruition, and to see this really gives me the realization that we are able to accomplish this goal. Which actually I'm kind of surprised because I think in terms of difficulty, Breath of the Wild isn't exactly super easy. I mean, once you start getting your stuff together and start getting hearts, but there's a lot of way. It's very easy to die in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, especially early on when you're first kind of getting into your initial fights and maybe you go to some place you're not supposed to. Stuff can one-shot you if you fight the wrong enemy. So to see, that it's actually being enjoyed by a wider group of people is pretty amazing. And then next, when we go on, Tears of the Kingdom plays off Breath of the Wild, but with the addition of Ultra Hand adds so much to the core experience. Now it feels so integral to the experience and so important to those more casual fans that you mentioned bringing in. With that in mind, do you think we'll see Ultra Hand return in future titles? Which is a great question. And this is the Hidemaru Fubiashi answering, when we created this title, say Tears of the Kingdom, as you mentioned, the crux of the experience in playing Tears of the Kingdom is Ultra Hand. So this game was designed around that sort of function. And you can tell if you played Tears of the Kingdom that it definitely is. And the freedom to create. As you mentioned, that is what Tears of the Kingdom is. So every time we're making a Zelda title, we want to create something new. If, for example, there was a continuation of Tears of the Kingdom, and we were bringing, say, Ultra Hand, then I think to us it would feel like, well, we're just bringing Tears of the Kingdom as it is. What we want to do from a game creation perspective is create something new. From that perspective, I don't think we'll be seeing Ultra Hand in every Zelda game or anything in the future. Which, I mean, is kind of unfortunate. I really liked Ultra Hand. So I wouldn't be sad to see it back. Excuse me, I just had to take a drink. But I can definitely see where they're coming from, where they don't want to just keep reusing the same mechanic. It might make it feel too much like Tears of the Kingdom instead of it being its own game. And this is Edgy, the producer. I can't pronounce his last name, Anoma. When we're talking about Ultra Hand, that really is the core idea for Tears of the Kingdom. And I think it represents our approach of kind of putting everything we could into this game. First putting all our ideas in, and then being very selective about what we wanted to remain, removing all the parts that didn't make sense or didn't fit perfectly. This game then is a result of the selection process. This game, you'll see, there is no DLC because of that process. we created what we wanted to create and felt that it would be complete in that fashion. So from this aspect as well, I think we definitely won't be including Ultra Hand in titles going forward. So, very sad to see Ultra Hand won't be back, but I hope they'll actually, they don't necessarily have Ultra Hand, but I definitely would like to see them do more stuff, especially, no, Santiago, no, it is not a euphemism for playing with yourself. Ultra Hand is a mechanic in the game that you use to grab things with like almost telepathic power, and you can put them together. It's pretty cool. Kind of like building blocks, but of course with the kind of brilliant, I think the brilliance of Tears of the Kingdom when Breath of the Wild was its engine. And I don't know if they'll be using the same engine for this title going forward, but I hope it's something similar because it just allows for so much, especially if they want to make it open world, just so much creativity. And now with Ultra Hand, well, it sort of lost my train of thought there. But it just allows so much creativity. So hopefully they're going to find a different way to kind of include that, sort of allow people to use creativity when they're playing the game. Especially if, like I said, if they want to go again with an open world Zelda. I think one of the biggest issues with open world is, is allowing sort of freedom and creativity as what lets you enjoy the game in different ways and stops the game from getting boring. So you have, a lot of content, a lot of area to travel, a lot of like sort of different nooks and crannies to explore. Being able to take them on in like different and creative ways really helps keep the game fresh. But yeah, it is interesting to see, and they're not planning on, one thing they mentioned is that they're not bringing back this world. Tears of the Kingdom was the end. Obviously they had Breath of the Wild. Then they have Tears of the Kingdom was kind of like a sequel to Breath of the Wild. They mentioned that from here on out, it's going to be a completely different one. Completely different, Link and Zelda. A lot of the similar elements, which they always have in these things, but it's going to be totally different. There's going to be no more spin-offs to this. Well, there might be spin-offs, but yeah, this was it for the mainline Zelda games. We'll move on to a different time, which I really enjoyed. Breath of the Wild, this world, the design's really good. So it's really nice to see. It's a beautiful world. They did a great job with it. And definitely one of the better 3D. I'm trying to think, is it the best 3D Zelda game? Probably. In terms of versus Ocarina of Time. I really liked Ocarina of Time. I think it's the kind of like standard for 3D Zeldas. I mean, outside of the fact that they don't really go too much into temples, that would be the kind of the only downside. I did like the sort of puzzle solving, and they did some of it in the in this, but I think in a way, almost the temple is kind of a, I don't know. It just doesn't fit in with the open world as much. Like when you sort of like traveling, this open world traveling around and, fighting different enemies, they sort of take place in the world itself to sort of like go inside the temples or, these like, in this it was, I guess they were temples, but like to go inside the Thunder Temple and have these like enclosed spaces with these specific rooms and challenges. They didn't feel quite the same. It's like a drastic difference. And I don't know if it was quite as good. It's hard to say. I'd have to think about that more, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the temples as much as I did in, say, like Ocarina of Time. And maybe that was more because of the design front rather than the open world part. Maybe they just didn't quite do as good a job or didn't really feel as the same as the rest of the world. It's hard to say what that is, but anyway, I'm rambling at this point. It's been an hour, and that is it for the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Covered a lot of different things happening. E3 is dead. Day before is dead. This Zelda is dead now. No more of that, but new stuff comes. Like Monster Hunter Wild will be here in 2025. Well, I'm trying to think. There's not a lot of hype for 2024 in terms of games. So I can't think of too many I'm looking forward to, but we'll see. At least there's always old games to turn back to. That's for the video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll talk to you later. Goodbye. Of course, if you're watching this later, let me know what you think about any of this stuff in the comments below.